She chained it and walked away, left it bleeding in the wreckage to die alone. But one human soldier made a choice that would shatter an empire and rewrite the rules of an entire galaxy. The transport wreckage spread across the canyon floor like broken bones. Private Danny Reeves kicked through the debris field, his rifle sweeping left and right. Smoke still rose from the crashed Valrian vessel, curling into the purple sky of Sirius 7. His squad moved through the ruins carefully, searching for anything useful. "Nothing alive here," Sergeant Mills called out from near the cockpit section. "Looks like they evacuated before impact." Danny nodded and moved toward the cargo bay. The metal doors hung twisted on broken hinges. He squeezed through the gap, his helmet light cutting through the darkness inside. The air smelled wrong. Blood and something else. Something animal. Then he heard it, a low rumble that made his chest vibrate. Danny raised his rifle and swept the light across the cargo hold. His breath caught. The creature lay chained to the far wall. It was massive, easily the size of an earth elephant. Midnight blue fur covered its body, marked with glowing patterns that pulsed faintly like dying embers. A cat-like face turned toward him, eyes reflecting his light in shades of gold and green. Blood matted the fur along its side. "Holy hell," Danny whispered. He had seen pictures of shadow manes before. The Valrians kept them as pets, status symbols for the wealthy, but seeing one in person was different. The creature's eyes held intelligence, pain, and something that looked like despair. The shadow mane tried to stand but collapsed. The chains rattled against the metal floor. One of its legs bent at an unnatural angle. Internal injuries from the crash, Danny guessed. Maybe broken ribs, definitely dehydration from the blood loss. "Reeves, what are you doing in there?" Mills appeared in the doorway. He saw the creature and swore, "Get out of there, that thing is dangerous." "It's hurt," Danny said, not moving. "Not our problem. We have orders to recon this sector and move on." Mills gestured with his rifle. "Let's go." Danny moved to the corner where a console still flickered with power. He pulled up the ship's logs, scrolling through the evacuation records. There it was. Passenger manifest showed a Valrian noble named Lyra. Status: evacuated safely. But there was a note in her personal log. "The Shadow Mane is too injured to move. Waste of rescue capacity. Leave it secured." Danny read the words twice. She had left it here, chained, unable to escape, knowing it would die slowly in the wreckage. "Reeves, I gave you an order." "I'm staying," Danny said quietly. Mills stared at him. "What?" "I'm a medic, Sarge. This creature is dying. I took an oath to help those who can't help themselves." Danny set down his rifle and pulled out his medical kit. "You go ahead. I'll catch up." "You'll be court-martialed." "Maybe." Danny walked toward the Shadow Mane slowly, hands visible. "But I can live with that." Mills shook his head. "You got 12 hours, then I'm reporting your position." He disappeared through the doorway. Danny knelt 5 meters from the creature. It watched him with those intelligent eyes. Up close, he could see scars under the fur. Old ones. This animal had been hurt before, and not just from the crash. "Hey there," Danny said softly. "I know you probably don't understand me, but I'm going to help you, okay? I promise I'm not going to hurt you." The Shadow Mane's ears flicked. It made a sound somewhere between a growl and a whine. Danny opened his kit and pulled out a scanner. He needed to assess the injuries before he could treat anything. Moving slowly, he approached. The creature tensed but didn't attack. Maybe too weak. Maybe something else. The scanner revealed broken ribs, internal bleeding, severe dehydration, and that shattered leg. Danny swore under his breath. This was bad, really bad. He would need to work fast. First, the bleeding. Danny pulled out coagulant foam and loaded it into an injector. "This is going to sting," he warned. The Shadow Mane flinched when the needle pierced its side, but the foam would stop the internal hemorrhaging. Danny injected 3 doses in different locations. Next, fluids. He set up an IV line, finding a vein in the creature's front leg. The shadow mane watched every movement but didn't resist. Its breathing slowed as the fluids entered its system. The leg was harder. Danny couldn't set it properly without better equipment, but he could stabilize it. He used his emergency splint kit, working carefully. The creature's muscles tensed under his hands. It could kill him so easily. One swipe of those claws, but it stayed still. "Good," Danny murmured. "You're doing good." He worked for 3 hours straight, bandaging wounds, monitoring vitals, making sure the IV stayed in place. The shadow mane never stopped watching him. As the sun set outside, the creature's glowing markings brightened, casting blue light across the cargo hold. Danny found water containers in the wreckage. He poured some into a broken panel and held it near the creature's mouth. The shadow mane hesitated, then lapped at the water desperately. Danny refilled it 4 times before the creature stopped drinking. "You must have been so thirsty," Danny said. He sat down against the wall, exhausted. "I'm sorry she left you here. I'm sorry anyone would do that to you." The shadow mane made a sound, softer this time. It lowered its massive head to the floor, still watching Danny. The chains clinked as it shifted position slightly. Danny pulled out a ration bar and ate slowly. He would need to stay awake, monitor the creature through the night, make sure the treatment held. Outside, wind howled through the canyon. Inside, human and alien breathed in the darkness together. "I'm going to call you Cinder," Danny decided, "because of those glowing marks, like embers in a fire." Cinder's ear flicked again. Those golden-green eyes blinked slowly. Danny settled in for the long night ahead. He had made his choice. Now he just had to keep this magnificent creature alive. 3 days in the wreckage changed everything. Danny barely slept, checking Cinder's vitals every few hours. The shadow mane grew stronger slowly. The internal bleeding stopped. The leg started healing in the splint. But more importantly, something else developed between them. Trust. Cinder stopped flinching when Danny approached. Those intelligent eyes followed his movements with curiosity instead of fear. On the second day, when Danny changed the bandages, the creature made a rumbling sound that vibrated through the floor. Not a growl, something gentler, almost like a purr. "You're welcome," Danny said, smiling despite his exhaustion. He talked while he worked, a habit from his medic training. Patients responded better when you spoke to them, even if they couldn't understand the words. He told Cinder about Earth, about his family, about why he joined the military. "My dad was a veterinarian," Danny explained while cleaning a wound. "He taught me that every life matters. Doesn't matter if it's a human or a dog or a cat. If something is suffering and you can help, you help. Simple as that." Cinder's ear twitched. The creature seemed to listen. Danny found more water and managed to hunt some local creatures that looked like 6-legged rabbits. He cooked them over a small fire and offered some to Cinder. The shadow mane sniffed the meat cautiously before eating. Danny noticed Cinder ate slowly, carefully, like someone who had been denied food as punishment before. The scars made more sense now. Old burns, marks from shock collars, places where fur had never grown back properly. This creature had been tortured by its owner, used as a toy, discarded when it became inconvenient. On the third morning, something happened that proved everything had changed. Danny woke to a sound outside the cargo hold, hissing, clicking. He grabbed his rifle and moved to the door. A local predator crouched there. It looked like a snake crossed with a scorpion, 3 meters long with dripping fangs. The venom would kill a human in minutes. It had probably smelled blood from Cinder's wounds. Danny raised his rifle. Before he could fire, Cinder moved. The shadow mane was still chained, still injured, but it surged forward as far as the restraints allowed. The chain snapped taut. Cinder placed itself between Danny and the predator, barring teeth the size of kitchen knives. The roar that came from its chest shook dust from the ceiling. The predator fled. Danny stood frozen. Cinder had protected him. Despite being hurt, despite the chains, despite having every reason to hate humans after what Lyra had done, the Shadow Mane had chosen to defend him. "Thank you," Danny whispered. He approached slowly and did something that might have been insane. He placed his hand on Cinder's shoulder. The creature tensed, then relaxed. The rumbling purr returned. Danny spent the next hour working on the chains. He couldn't break them, but he managed to extend their length so Cinder could move more freely. The Shadow Mane stretched, careful of its healing leg, and settled closer to where Danny had made his camp. That afternoon, his squad returned. "Reeves, you crazy idiot," Sergeant Mills stood in the doorway, staring. "You're still here." "The creature needed help," Danny said simply. Corporal Amy Hayes pushed past Mills. She was Danny's best friend, had been since basic training. She looked at Cinder, then at Danny, then back at the Shadow Mane. "You bonded with it." "I saved its life. It saved mine." Danny gestured to where the dead predator lay outside. "We're even." Amy knelt down, studying Cinder with professional interest. She had grown up on a farming colony, worked with animals all her life. Shadow Manes bond for life once they choose someone. My grandma told stories about them from before the Valrians started enslaving them. They used to live free on the moon colonies. "Can we move it?" Danny asked. Mills shook his head. "Lieutenant will have my hide for letting you stay here 3 days. You want me to bring an alien predator back to base?" "Please, Sarge." Danny looked at his commanding officer. "It will die out here alone, and it's not a threat. Cinder is gentle." "You named it," Mills rubbed his face. "God help me, fine, but this is on you, Reeves, all of it." They worked together to rig a transport sled. Cinder watched nervously as they approached, but calmed when Danny spoke softly. The Shadow Mane trusted him enough to let the others help. Getting Cinder back to base took 6 hours of careful movement. They used an abandoned bunker on the outskirts, hidden from the main compound. Amy helped Danny set up proper medical equipment. The Shadow Mane explored the space cautiously, limping on its healing leg. "This can't last," Amy said quietly. "Someone will find out." "I know." Danny watched Cinder settle into a corner. The creature's glowing markings lit up the bunker. "But I'll figure something out." That night Danny sat against the wall while Cinder rested nearby. The Shadow Mane had positioned itself so it could see both Danny and the door, protective, alert. Danny thought about the choice he had made 3 days ago, about staying behind when he should have followed orders, about saving a creature that his military considered an enemy asset. He would do it again without hesitation. Cinder's breathing slowed as it fell asleep. For the first time since the crash, the Shadow Mane looked peaceful, safe. Danny closed his eyes. Whatever came next, they would face it together. He had given Cinder a chance to live. The Shadow Mane had given him something in return, purpose, a reminder that compassion mattered more than orders. Outside the bunker, war continued. Valrian and human forces prepared for the next battle. But in this small hidden space, 2 beings from different worlds had found something rare. Understanding. 2 weeks. Danny managed to hide Cinder for 2 weeks before everything fell apart. Amy helped smuggle medical supplies and food. Cinder grew stronger each day. The broken leg healed remarkably fast. The Shadow Mane could walk now, even run short distances. But the real change was in how Cinder acted around Danny. The bond had deepened. Cinder would rest its massive head on Danny's lap while he checked the healing wounds. The creature followed him everywhere in the bunker, never more than a few steps away. At night, Cinder slept curled around Danny, keeping him warm in the cold desert air. "Shadow Mane's imprint on one person," Amy explained one evening. "It's not like a pet and owner relationship. It's more like family, like pack. You saved Cinder's life when everyone else abandoned it. That creature would die for you now." Danny stroked Cinder's fur. The glowing markings pulsed under his hand. "I would die for Cinder too." Let's hope it doesn't come to that. It almost did. The Valrians arrived under a ceasefire flag. Diplomatic negotiations, they called it, but Danny saw her in the convoy. Lyra. She wore expensive armor decorated with precious metals. Her expression was cold as she entered the human base. Danny was in the bunker when Amy burst in. "We have a problem, big problem." "Valrians." "Worse, Lyra is here. She has tracking data from Cinder's old collar. She knows her shadow mane is somewhere on this base." Danny's blood ran cold. He looked at Cinder, who sensed his fear and moved closer. "What does she want?" "To reclaim her property." Amy spat the word. "She's demanding the humans return her stolen creature or face diplomatic consequences." "Cinder isn't property." "Try telling that to Valrian law." Within an hour, Colonel Wright's soldiers found the bunker. They escorted Danny and Cinder to the main building. Danny walked beside the shadow mane, one hand on its shoulder. Cinder stayed calm, trusting Danny completely. The meeting room was tense. Colonel Wright sat on one side of the table, Lyra on the other. Danny stood with Cinder behind him. "That is mine," Lyra said, pointing at the shadow mane. "Stolen from my crashed vessel." "I saved it from dying," Danny shot back. "You left it chained and bleeding." "It was damaged, not worth the rescue resources." Lyra's voice was flat, emotionless. "But it has recovered now. I want it back." Colonel Wright leaned forward. "Private Reeves, is it true you disobeyed orders to stay with this creature?" "Yes, sir." "Did you remove it from the crash site without authorization?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand the charges against you? Disobeying orders, unauthorized actions, potentially endangering this base by bringing in an alien predator." Danny stood straighter. "I understand, sir, but I would do it again." Lyra smiled coldly. "Then return my property, and I will request your military drop all charges." "No." Everyone turned to look at Danny. "Private, that was not a request," Colonel Wright said. "With respect, sir, Cinder is not her property anymore. She abandoned it, left it to die. That creature suffered under her care." Danny gestured to Cinder's scars. "Look at the old wounds, the burns, the marks from shock collars. This shadow mane was tortured." Lyra's expression did not change. "How I discipline my possessions is not your concern." "Discipline?" Amy spoke up from the door. "You call torture discipline?" "Silence," Colonel Wright ordered. He looked tired, old. "This is a complicated situation. Valrian law says shadow manes are property. Terran law does not apply to Valrian citizens." "What about salvage law?" Amy moved forward. "Sir, if I may, Terran military code includes rescue and salvage rights. When a vessel is abandoned in contested territory, any rescued materials or beings fall under the finder's claim." Colonel Wright raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Lyra abandoned her ship in a war zone. She left Cinder chained and dying. Under Terran law, that's abandonment. Private Reeves performed a rescue operation. That gives him salvage rights to everything he recovered." "That is ridiculous," Lyra hissed. "Is it?" Amy pulled up documents on the room's screen. "Here, Terran Military Code, Section 47, Subsection 12. Rescue and salvage rights apply to all living beings found in abandoned vessels within contested zones. Lyra's own evacuation logs prove she willingly left Cinder behind." Lyra stood. "This is an insult. That creature is mine by Valrian law." "But we're not in Valrian space," Colonel Wright said slowly. "We're in contested territory, and by Terran law, Private Reeves has the stronger claim." "You cannot be serious." "I am." Colonel Wright turned to Danny. "Private Reeves, do you accept full responsibility for this shadow mane, including any damages, injuries, or incidents it may cause?" "Yes, sir, absolutely." "Then I am granting you custody under Terran salvage law." Wright looked at Lyra. "The creature stays with Private Reeves." Lyra's face turned purple with rage. This is not over. When the ceasefire ends, I will take back what is mine, by force if necessary. That would be an act of war over a single animal, Wright said calmly. I doubt your superiors would approve. You know nothing of what my superiors would approve. Lyra stormed toward the door. She stopped next to Cinder and Danny. Enjoy your time with it, human. War is coming, and when it does, I will personally take that creature from your corpse. She left. Danny released a breath he had not realized he was holding. Cinder pressed against his side, rumbling softly. That went well, Amy muttered. Colonel Wright stood. Private Reeves, you are officially assigned to the Special Operations Unit. You and that Shadow Mane are now a reconnaissance team. Dismissed. Danny saluted. Thank you, sir. Outside, Danny knelt and wrapped his arms around Cinder's neck. The Shadow Mane purred, the sound vibrating through them both. We did it, Danny whispered. You're safe. But Lyra's threat echoed in his mind. War was coming, and when it did, everything would change. The ceasefire lasted exactly 14 more days. Danny used every moment to train with Cinder. The Shadow Mane learned faster than any animal he had ever worked with. Commands, signals, complex instructions. Cinder understood them all. But it was the abilities Danny discovered that amazed him most. Watch this, Amy said one morning. She stood behind a wall, hidden from view. Cinder's ears perked up. The Shadow Mane walked directly to where Amy hid and sat down, staring at the wall. How did it know? Danny asked. Empathic sense. Shadow Manes can feel emotions from living things. Cinder sensed me there. Amy stepped out. They can also tell when someone is lying or afraid or planning violence. Danny tested it. He asked volunteers to hide around the base. Cinder found every single one. The Shadow Mane could sense heartbeats, emotions, intentions. It was like having a living radar. More than that, Cinder could move in complete silence despite its massive size. The creature seemed to fade into shadows, its dark fur making it nearly invisible in low light. The glowing markings could dim to almost nothing. Your Shadow Mane is incredible, Colonel Wright said during a demonstration. I have never seen anything like it. Cinder is special, Danny agreed. Other soldiers grew comfortable around the creature. Cinder played gently with them during downtime, careful never to use its claws or teeth too hard. Children from the civilian sections visited under supervision. They climbed on Cinder's back and the Shadow Mane purred, patient and kind. But Danny saw the intelligence in those golden-green eyes. Cinder was not a pet, not really. The Shadow Mane was a partner, an equal. Then the alarm sounded. Valrian forces appeared on every scanner, dozens of ships, hundreds of soldiers. They hit the base from 3 directions simultaneously. All personnel to defensive positions, Wright's voice echoed through the compound. This is not a drill. Danny grabbed his rifle and ran. Cinder loped beside him, matching his pace perfectly. They reached the eastern wall just as the first Valrian dropships landed. Soldiers poured out, but Danny's attention locked on the figure leading them. Lyra. She wore combat armor now, decorated with kill markings, and behind her walked 3 Shadow Manes, each wearing heavy neural collars. Oh no, Amy breathed beside him. She brought enslaved ones. The 3 Shadow Manes looked wrong. Their eyes were dull, empty. They moved stiffly, responding to commands from Lyra's control device. These creatures were not partners. They were weapons, prisoners in their own bodies. Cinder saw them and made a sound Danny had never heard before. Pain, anguish, recognition. They're calling to it, Amy said. Through their empathic link, Cinder can feel their suffering. The battle erupted. Valrian weapons fired. Human soldiers returned fire. The 3 enslaved Shadow Manes charged forward, attacking human positions with brutal efficiency. Fall back, Sergeant Mills shouted. We can't fight those things. Cinder trembled beside Danny. The Shadow Mane wanted to help the others but did not know how. "Stay with me," Danny ordered. "We find Lyra, stop her, we stop the collars." They moved through the chaos. Cinder's senses guided them around enemy patrols. The Shadow Mane could feel where Valrians hid, where ambushes waited. They avoided every trap. But Lyra was heading for the medical bay, for the civilian shelters. Danny and Amy arrived first. They set up a defensive position. Cinder crouched beside them, muscles tense. Lyra entered with 10 soldiers. The 3 enslaved Shadow Manes flanked her. "I told you I would take back what is mine," Lyra said. She held up a device, a portable neural collar. "Last chance, human. Surrender the creature willingly or I will override its will and force it to kill you." "Cinder will never hurt me." "We shall see." Lyra pressed a button. The neural signal blasted out. Cinder's entire body went rigid. The Shadow Mane's eyes widened in agony. Every muscle trembled as the collar technology tried to seize control of its mind. "Fight it," Danny yelled. "You're stronger than this." Lyra increased the power. Cinder collapsed to the floor, writhing. The Shadow Mane's claws scraped against the metal, leaving deep gouges. Its mouth opened in a silent scream. "Submit," Lyra commanded. "Kill the humans." Cinder's head turned toward Danny. Those golden-green eyes were filled with pain and terror. The Shadow Mane tried to resist, but the signal was overwhelming. Its body began to move, rising despite its efforts to stop. Danny dropped his rifle. He walked forward and knelt in front of Cinder. "I trust you," he said quietly. "You are not her slave. You are my friend, my family, and I know you can beat this." Tears ran down his face. Cinder's massive paw raised, claws extended. One swipe would kill him. "Do it," Lyra ordered through the collar. "Kill him now." Cinder's paw trembled in the air. The Shadow Mane's eyes locked on Danny's face. And then something impossible happened. Cinder roared, not in pain, in defiance. The Shadow Mane's entire body glowed bright blue as it fought the neural signal with pure willpower. Every marking blazed like fire. "No," Lyra increased the power to maximum. "This is not possible." But Cinder was not bound by force. The Shadow Mane had chosen Danny. That choice, that bond built on trust and love, was stronger than any technology. The neural signal shattered. Cinder's paw came down, but not on Danny. The Shadow Mane turned and lunged at Lyra's soldiers instead. "Impossible," Lyra stumbled backward. "Shadow Manes cannot resist the collar." "Cinder just did," Amy said, raising her rifle. The battle turned instantly. Cinder's resistance sent a shockwave through the empathic link. The 3 other Shadow Manes felt it, felt one of their kind breaking free. And they began to fight their collars too. One by one, the enslaved creatures stopped obeying. They turned on their Valrian handlers. Confusion spread through Lyra's forces. "Retreat," Lyra screamed. "Fall back." But it was too late. The freed Shadow Manes remembered what it felt like to choose, and they chose freedom. Chaos consumed the battlefield. The 3 freed Shadow Manes turned on their former captors with fury born from years of enslavement. Valrian soldiers scrambled to retreat, unprepared for their own weapons to rebel. Cinder stood protectively over Danny, breathing hard. The Shadow Mane's eyes still glowed bright from the effort of breaking the neural control. Danny placed his hand on Cinder's side, feeling the rapid heartbeat. "You did it," he whispered. "You actually did it." The largest of the freed Shadow Manes, a massive creature with silver markings, approached carefully. It stopped several meters away and made a questioning sound. Not aggressive, curious. Cinder responded with a series of rumbles and chirps. The 2 creatures were communicating. "They're talking," Amy said in awe. "I have never seen that before." The silver Shadow Mane looked at Danny. Then it walked slowly to Amy and sat down in front of her. The creature lowered its head, waiting. "I think it's asking for help," Danny said. Amy knelt down. She had watched Danny work with Cinder for weeks. Now she copied his gentle approach. Her hand touched the shadow mane's head. The creature leaned into her touch and began to purr. "Hello," Amy said softly. "I'm going to call you Storm, is that okay?" Storm's eyes brightened. The neural collar still hung around its neck, damaged but present. Amy worked carefully to remove it. When the device fell away, Storm shook its entire body like a dog shedding water. The other two freed Shadow Manes followed Cinder's lead. One approached Sergeant Mills. The other chose a young soldier named Peter. Both humans looked terrified and honored at the same time. "What do we do with them, sir?" Mills asked Colonel Wright over the radio. "The same thing Private Reeves did," Wright replied. "Show them kindness. These creatures just helped save our base." The Valrian retreat became a full rout. Lyra screamed orders, but her forces ignored her, running for their drop ships. The Shadow Manes did not pursue. They had no interest in killing, only freedom. Lyra herself faced Cinder and Danny one last time. Her armor was damaged. Her expression twisted with rage and disbelief. "This is impossible," she hissed. "Neural collars are absolute. No creature has ever broken one before." "Maybe because no one ever gave them a reason to try," Danny said. He kept his rifle lowered. "You forced them to obey. I gave Cinder a choice. That made all the difference." "Choice?" Lyra laughed bitterly. "They are animals. They do not understand choice." "They understand it better than you do." Danny looked at the four Shadow Manes now standing with their chosen humans. They chose freedom over slavery. They chose partners over masters, and they will never go back to being your possessions. Lyra's hand moved toward her sidearm. Cinder growled, the sound deep and threatening. The other Shadow Manes joined in, creating a rumble that shook the ground. "I would not do that," Amy warned. Lyra's hand stopped. She looked at Cinder with something like heartbreak in her eyes. "I raised you from a cub, fed you, cared for you." Cinder did not react. The Shadow Mane stayed pressed against Danny's side. "You heard it," Danny said quietly. "Those scars did not come from love. You saw Cinder as a trophy, a tool, but this creature is so much more than that." Lyra opened her mouth to respond but stopped. In the distance, more Valrian ships appeared, but these carried different markings. She recognized them and her face went pale. "Your superiors," Colonel Wright's voice came from behind them. He had arrived with reinforcements. "I contacted the Valrian High Command during the battle, informed them that one of their nobles attacked during an active ceasefire. They are very interested in speaking with you." "You have ruined me," Lyra whispered. "You ruined yourself," Wright replied. "By treating living beings as property, by attacking during a diplomatic ceasefire, by valuing pride over peace." Valrian officers in formal uniforms descended from the new ships. They took Lyra into custody without ceremony. She did not resist. As they led her away, she looked back at Cinder one final time. "I hope you are happy with your human," she said. Cinder's only response was to press closer to Danny. When the Valrians left, taking their disgraced noble with them, an exhausted silence fell over the base. The four Shadow Manes stayed close to their chosen humans. None showed any desire to leave. "What now?" Peter asked. He sat with his Shadow Mane, a lean creature with copper-colored markings. "Do we send them back to Valrian space?" "Absolutely not," Colonel Wright said firmly. "These creatures helped defend this base. They deserve sanctuary." "But where?" Mills stroked Storm's head. The silver Shadow Mane had not left Amy's side. "We cannot keep them secret anymore." "We do not keep them secret," Wright replied. "We make them official. As of now, the Shadow Mane integration program is established. Private Reeves will lead it." Danny looked up in surprise. "Sir, you proved these creatures can work with humans as partners, not as weapons or slaves. Partners." Wright smiled. "I want you to teach others how to build that bond. and I want this base to become a sanctuary for any shadow main that escapes Valrian control." "There will be more," Amy said. "Once word spreads that Cinder broke a neural collar, other shadow manes will try. The empathic link means they all felt it happen." She was right. Over the following weeks, reports came in from across Valrian space. Shadow manes refusing orders, resisting their collars. Some succeeded in breaking free. Others failed and were destroyed by their owners. But every freed shadow main made their way to Sirius 7, to the place where a human had chosen compassion over orders, where creatures were treated as equals instead of property. Danny worked with each new arrival, teaching patience, building trust, showing humans and shadow manes how to form true bonds. Cinder stayed by his side through it all. The shadow main who had been left to die became a symbol, proof that choice was stronger than control, that kindness could break any chain. 6 months after the battle, Sirius 7 had transformed. The human base expanded to include dedicated areas for shadow manes, medical facilities, training grounds, living spaces designed for creatures that needed room to run and hunt. 47 shadow manes now called it home. Each had escaped Valrian control and made the dangerous journey to freedom. Each found a human partner willing to build a real bond. Danny walked through the sanctuary grounds with Cinder padding silently beside him. The shadow main's leg had healed completely. Its scars remained but seemed less prominent now. Happiness had replaced the haunted look in those golden-green eyes. "Morning, Reeves," Amy called out. She rode on Storm's back, the silver shadow mane moving with graceful power. They were heading out on patrol. "Section 7 is clear. No Valrian activity." "Good, keep me updated." Danny watched them go. Amy and Storm had become as close as he and Cinder. The bond between them was obvious in every movement. The Valrian Empire had not taken the Shadow Mane rebellion well. Some nobles quietly supported the sanctuary, tired of the cruel traditions. Others demanded military action to reclaim their property. But the Valrian High Command hesitated. Attacking during the last ceasefire had cost them politically. Starting a war over escaped animals seemed foolish. More importantly, the escaped Shadow Manes told a story. Through the empathic link, every Shadow Mane in the galaxy knew what happened on Sirius 7. They knew freedom was possible. They knew humans offered choice instead of chains. Some Valrians began releasing their Shadow Manes voluntarily. Others found their creatures gone one morning, having escaped in the night. The status symbol of owning a shadow mane became a liability. "Sir, we have incoming," Peter's voice crackled over Danny's radio. "One ship, no weapons hot, looks like a transport." "Keep watch but hold fire," Danny ordered. He and Cinder moved toward the landing pad. The ship bore Valrian markings but also a white flag symbol. Diplomatic approach. It landed smoothly and the ramp extended. An elderly Valrian emerged. She wore simple robes, not armor. Behind her walked two shadow manes, both wearing damaged neural collars. "I am Ambassador Talira," she said in accented but clear English. "I come seeking sanctuary for these two." Danny approached carefully. Cinder stayed alert but not aggressive. "You want to give us your shadow manes?" "They are not mine to give. They belong to themselves." Talira gestured and the two creatures moved forward. "I have spent 30 years studying shadow manes. I watched the old ways before we enslaved them. I know what we have done is wrong." She pulled out a device and deactivated both neural collars. The shadow manes shook them off immediately. "I cannot fight the entire empire alone," Talira continued. "But I can free those in my care, and I can ask you to accept them." "Of course." Danny knelt down. Both shadow manes approached cautiously. One with golden markings touched its nose to his hand. The other, darker with purple streaks, sat beside Cinder. "There is more," Talira said. "I have information. Other Valrians who want to help. safe routes for shadow manes to escape. We are forming a network, human, to end the slavery quietly, one creature at a time. Danny stood. You are risking everything. Yes, but I have seen the recordings. Watched your shadow mane break the neural collar through sheer will and love. Talira's eyes were sad. We did terrible things to these creatures. The least I can do is help undo some of that harm. Over the following hour, Talira shared names, locations, and plans. A underground movement of Valrians working against their own empire's cruelty. Danny uploaded everything to Colonel Wright's office. This changes things, Wright said when he arrived. If Valrians are helping from inside, we can save more shadow manes. And create real change, Talira added. Young Valrians are questioning the old ways. They see humans treating shadow manes as equals and wonder why we treat them as property. Cultural change is slow, but it begins. Danny looked out at the sanctuary. Shadow manes played with each other and their human partners, trained together, lived together. The sight filled him with hope. It started with one choice, he said quietly. I chose to stay with Cinder. Everything else came from that. One choice can change everything, Talira agreed. You proved that. She left that evening, promising to return with more information. The two shadow manes she brought stayed, already bonding with soldiers who needed partners. That night Danny sat in his quarters. Cinder lay beside him, too large for the space but refusing to sleep anywhere else. The shadow mane's rumbling purr was a constant comfort. Do you remember the wreckage? Danny asked. When I found you chained and dying. Cinder's ear flicked. Those intelligent eyes opened to look at him. I was so scared, thought I was making a stupid mistake, thought I would probably die for disobeying orders. Danny stroked the soft fur. But I would do it again, every time, because you deserved better than what she gave you. Cinder made a soft sound and nuzzled closer. A knock on the door interrupted the moment. Amy entered, Storm following close behind. Got a report from Sector 9, she said. Another crash transport, Valrian. The crew evacuated but left something behind. Danny was already standing. Another shadow mane. 3 of them all injured, all abandoned. Cinder rose too, sensing Danny's intention. Then let's go get them, Danny said. They moved out into the purple night of Cirrus 7. Danny, Cinder, Amy, and Storm. A rescue team built on compassion and choice. Behind them the sanctuary glowed with lights. Ahead, 3 more shadow manes waited, not knowing rescue was coming. Danny thought about his father's words. Every life matters. If something is suffering and you can help, you help. Simple as that. And so the work continued. One rescue at a time, one choice at a time, one bond at a time. Changing the galaxy through small acts of kindness. Proving that sometimes, the greatest revolutions start with one person refusing to walk away from suffering. Cinder had taught him that, and now together they would teach the stars.